obviously coming from a very different sector, vertical farming, urban agriculture, technology, but I think there's a lot of like minds in the room. We're all trying to push the boundaries of what our technology can do. I think the blockchain is similar to vertical farms, a platform to do a lot of different things. And I'm going to talk about vertical farming as a new paradigm for food production, but I do think that there are some interesting overlaps that we could potentially explore with the blockchain, and I'd be interested to talk to folks here and hear your thoughts in terms of ways that we might be able to collaborate. So first, I'll just start that Aerofarms is, we think we can grow everything with our technology, which is, to summarize it, a combination of LEDs and aeroponics technology, but we obviously don't grow everything. But the goal of this technology is to grow the best plants possible for the betterment of humanity, and we truly mean that. How do we grow more food with less resources? And we have this great platform. Right now, we're vertically integrated. We've designed our systems to grow leafy greens, but we can do much more than that, and we are doing much more than that. And we'll show you some videos and some cool stuff that highlights some of the success that we've had to date. Very quickly, history of the company, and I'll try to get through all this as fast as possible so we can have some questions, but the company was founded in 2004. We were an OEM, and then we switched to owning and operating our facilities in 2011. Since then, we've raised almost $200 million in capital through a number of different funding rounds. We've brought in customers like Whole Foods, ShopRite, Fresh Direct. We've brought in major investors like IKEA and Maras, ADM Capital. We have partnership with Dell as well on the technology side, and we're working very closely with them to really transform the data side of what we do and the data capture and how to optimize our operations based on that. I mentioned some of our investors. I will say we are based in New Jersey, but we are an international company. As you can see from this investor list, investors from the UK, Wheatsheaf, ADM Capital, China with GSR Ventures, Maras from the UAE. So you can see we have global ambitions at our company, and a lot of these partners that we brought in, we're exploring how we can deploy our technology commercially with them, either within their regions or with them as partners. So just to start, this is like a generic image of a bunch of people talking on the street in New York City, but basically the idea is population. Every major indicator right now is that the global population is going to rise to 9 billion by 2050. In the meantime, we're running out of land, running out of arable land in particular, water, and is that still going? And further degradation of the environment. So how do we do more with less resources? That is key to what Aerofarms is all about, the vertical farm. Most produce is grown, the leafy greens at least, is grown in a couple of areas of the United States. One is the Salinas Valley in California, and the other is in Yuma, Arizona. What you can see is these are large industrial farms. They're very water intensive, they're very resource intensive, they use a lot of water, fertilizer, there's runoff as a result of that. During the droughts, they saw water as a percentage of their cost structure go from 2% to over 20% just in a very short period of time. So it's a very strained way to grow this type of produce. I also like to show this image. This is Yuma, Arizona, and you can see we're growing greens in the desert. We're really competing with nature. It doesn't make any sense from a number of standpoints. And the technology that is used is essentially traditional irrigation methods. It's a lot of waste water that results from this. You can't use drip irrigation on these types of crops. There's also a lot of pesticide usage. Obviously, in order to grow outdoors, you have to use pesticides, and also organic fertilizer isn't necessarily clean. And this is actually someone you can see is in a hazmat suit spraying an organic soap-based fertilizer on crops. And essentially, what happens is, if you were to go to one of these processing facilities in California or in Arizona, you'll have a triple washing process. So the produce is washed 3 times, and even after the 3rd wash, you'll see like a milky white foam that's coming off of the crop, and then that lettuce is packaged with all of that moisture and that residue, and then it's delivered to retailers across the country with an elaborate cold chain. So before showing videos of our technology, the idea behind the vertical farm is to grow closer to where the consumer is actually located, disintermediating that whole cold chain, reducing food waste, but then ultimately having a superior product that uses a lot less inputs for a lot more output. And that means a pesticide-free product that uses 95% less water, half of the fertilizer, with a minimal environmental footprint. So wanted to show this video. This is one of the facilities that we built in New Jersey. This is actually the smaller of one of them. This is where our prototype space is. But what you're seeing is essentially LEDs that are stacked in a racking system. We're vertically integrated, so everything that you see in this we designed and engineered and manufactured. But essentially what you're seeing is the aeroponics misting system. We're pumping nutrients up from the reservoir systems at the base, and then we're dissolving 22 macro and micronutrients into the reservoirs and then misting them aeroponically into the roots of the plants, which allows for oxygenation of the root system, which accelerates the growth of the plant. And also, because the lights are on all the time, we have growth 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day of the year. The result is we have up to 26 crops a year. Normally in the field, you'd get 2 to 3 crops a year. And we are also growing on multiple levels. So this is 12 levels of growth. Our future operations are going to have about 14 levels of growth. So if you combine the number of grow cycles, the levels of growth, and then also the density of the production that we have, we're about 400 times more productive per square foot than the farms that I showed at the beginning of the presentation in California. Obviously, this requires resources, energy in particular, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like. But in short, we're able to very, I think efficiently work with utilities on minimizing our impact on the grid so that we're not adding any peak demand to their infrastructure. And we're also able to use renewables as part of our energy footprint. This one I just showed because it's really cool. So this is 14 days in one of the grow towers, and you can see the plants are growing. You're also seeing the lights aren't going off. Fairly automated, as you see. Nobody's really touching the plants while they're growing. Most of the work that's involved, the labor that's involved, is getting things on and off the growing towers, and then the packaging and processing operation. Not going too fast, am I? All right, we're good. Okay. So just to summarize, 95% less water, about 400 times more productive. We've been growing since 2004. These facilities, we've grown about 700 different varieties of leafy greens to date with these systems. But I will say, because of our vertical integration, we have an engineering team that's able to grow many other crops for other industries. For instance, strawberries are something that could also be a good application of this technology. But as you can imagine, the system has to be designed differently. The ergonomics of how a facility is laid out have to be differently. How you package and process, the temperature and humidity requirements of operating a facility are all different. So we're able to leverage the experience that we have in growing greens to grow other crops. And we see, we're talking about the infancy of the blockchain. This is certainly the infancy of what you can do with vertical farming and controlled environment agriculture, and we're going to be able to see a lot of growth. And we certainly have tailwinds because the LEDs are becoming more efficient every year, and as the LEDs become more efficient, you use less energy, so our unit costs go down, but you also need less infrastructure like HVAC equipment to keep the facility cool. So as Stan mentioned, we're a technology company. We work very closely using smart data, machine learning, machine vision algorithms. So what you can't see from that video is there are sensors everywhere. We're collecting millions of data points, and we're able to use that data essentially to do predictive modeling. So we could take, let's say, an image, a multispectral image of a tray, which is one unit on a grow tower, and based on that image and images that came before it, do predictive modeling to understand how much yield is going to come from that flat, and that could help us with planning, with customer orders, with our just general supply chain. But it also helps us learn better. What did we do right? What did we do wrong with respect to that particular tray? So it's really taking precision agriculture to that next level, where we're able to not just look at an acre of land, but a 3x6 tray on a grow tower and understand a lot about what's going on at the plant level, which you can't do in the field. So I mentioned Dell Technologies, so they've been a big partner of ours in helping think through this, leveraging some of their capabilities. Here's just an example of using multispectral imaging. So here we would put a tray on one of these systems. We would take an image before we would harvest that tray, and based on that image, we would be able to do all of that predictive modeling. So I try to get through that quickly because I do want to talk a little bit about the blockchain because that's why everyone's here. You're certainly not here to talk to a farmer from New York City, but I do want to talk about it because I think it's interesting. We don't currently do anything with the blockchain. I think that there's a lot of opportunity down the line, and I think what it comes down to is trust, right? And having a network that can connect really from seed to harvest and provide traceability, food traceability from the seed to the harvest to on the store shelves, and to give customers essentially the certainty that they need that their seeds were non-GMO, that the fertilizer used was organic, or the product is pesticide-free. All of these are opportunities where, currently the way the market works is consumers generally are taking the retailer's word for it that these products are sourced from where they are sourced from, but there's really no traceability or accountability. So the blockchain provides that mechanism for trust and transparency through that process. I think the challenge, and I'd love to hear folks' thoughts on this, the challenge is you really need to have everyone in the supply chain on board. So the seeding company needs to agree that they're going to provide that data in that manner to you, and then you have to provide that data as well through the blockchain, and that all has to flow up to the retailer. And unless you have the full, from seed to customer, you have that full transparent process, it's not necessarily going to provide that trust that the customer is looking for. So I think putting that together is probably the main challenge, and then obviously the cost associated from moving from a centralized network with established technology to essentially what would be a decentralized network with a less proven technology. And that's another challenge for us specifically is we're already doing a lot of work that's highly innovative, that has a lot of risk involved, and so do we want to sort of compound that with using other technologies that are also being developed rapidly. So there are some challenges, but I think there are also a lot of opportunities, and so I'd be interested in talking to folks about that. So just to summarize, we're the integration of biology, environmental, operations, mechanical. These are sort of the 5 pillars. So the grow towers that I showed in the video are really just a fraction of what we can do as an organization. It's really how do those grow towers interact with the building? How does the building interact with the critical infrastructure, the electrical, the HVAC? How does all of the packaging and harvesting and processing get that product off of the grow towers and then out to the customers? And all of that really requires a synthesis of these 5 pillars. This is an example of a product that we grow just so you can see it. We're highlighting that the plants are grown indoors, they're happy, they're healthy, they're pesticide-free, and with 95% less water. This is a bit of a non sequitur here, but I wanted to talk about capital efficiency as well, because that is part of why we're here as well. Vertical farming is capital intensive, right? So one of the reasons why Aerofarms has been successful in growing our business is that we've been able to attract low-cost capital to fund our projects. And that's been a combination of a number of programs. Some of those are government incentives. So in the US, there's opportunity zone funding. Some people might be familiar with that. There's new market tax credits. There's other incentives like guarantees and tax credits. And then it's looking at things like venture debt, mezzanine capital, impact-focused capital, and I think that there could be also potential in looking at potential. I'm not even familiar with all the terms, but coin-based financing. Right. Exactly. So I think there's, and we haven't even looked at that yet. So if there's folks that that have more knowledge than I do on that, I'd be very interested to have that conversation. And then finally, I just want to talk about electricity. So basically, we use a lot of power, but we use a very consistent amount of it. So the load factor is very high. And we also, because plants are resilient, we have the ability to do something called peak shaving, which means if it's a hot summer day and the utility is stressed and it needs to put on more expensive, what they call peaker power plants, it's a common practice in the US to do something called peak shaving, which is to ask some of your larger customers to shut off their power in exchange for a finite period of time in exchange for a lower rate. And so we're able to do that and not only optimize our cost structure, but also minimize our impact on the grid, because some of those what they call peaker power plants are also the most inefficient and carbon intensive. I think I've got 1 minute. So we're a certified B Corp, which is great. We're very engaged with the communities in which we grow. We produce, obviously, healthy food. We provide healthy food access to communities. So whether that be a farm stand that we operate for the communities or for our employees, what we do try to do is not alienate the communities or the employees from the products that they're helping produce. And so we provide about a 75% discount off the retail price for our products for employees and for community members. We also have partnerships with schools. So here's an image of actually a farm in a school in Newark, and we actually are able to put that in the lunchroom. So really cool stuff, a lot of different applications here. If you're interested, there's a lot of press. One in particular that's a really good piece is in the New Yorker called The Vertical Farm. And this is obviously just awards that we've received. A lot of acceptance for what we're doing, and a lot of excitement internally and externally to build more farms. So I'll leave it there.
I think we have one question. Yes.
Yes, it's a great question, Stan. It could work in Bermuda, and we're very excited to be exploring the possibility of building something here. There are challenges, but there are also opportunities. So obviously, the prices for food here are high, and the quality is not necessarily great all the time, although the lunch was delicious. There are quality issues and there are pricing issues, which from a pricing standpoint, that gives us more room on the cost side, because obviously cost of energy here is high, cost of labor here is high, cost of construction. So we're very confident that we can make it work, but we're in the process of exploring that as a fit, and we're hoping that building something in Bermuda could be a model for the Caribbean in general, and allow sovereign island countries to have resilient, sustainable, secure access to food that they produce. A farm could be only an acre in size in terms of the building, but it could be the equivalent of 200 acres of farmland, which is an enormous impact.
Do you have a question, Graham, in the back? And then we have to move on after that.
Yeah. Yeah, so just to give you a sense, the size of for one facility, we would need about 20 times the footprint of just the roof in solar just to meet our demand during the day. So we actually have equipment on our roof. If we did a solar installation in Newark, it would probably be mostly cosmetic, and we decided not to fool anyone. And this is energy intensive, and if you want to be able to do solar, you need land to do that. And yeah, so I think down the line, particularly power purchase agreements, particularly in the U.S., are getting to a point where they're competitive with even traditional power. And so some of our upcoming projects that we're looking at in the U.S., we're going to be pairing it with solar developments. And here as well, we're looking to do that. So.
Okay, thanks. I think we need to move on, but did anybody have a quick question? Yeah.
I was curious, and
Mhm.
how you're viewing it, particularly in the trust area and developing your brand. Have you actually done something, or what can we do as blockchain people to accelerate that? Where are you in that process?
Yes, we've done nothing other than spoken about it internally and kind of trying to understand what the opportunity is. But I think there's a perception that it might compound risk from the standpoint of we're already trying to triage risk with design changes we make to our facility. So I think speaking to the community, understanding what those risk points are, and maybe improving that perception could help accelerate.